Oh, good morning, Joyflu group. Today's day 4 of the self-love challenge. It is still morning, just so I had to take a dog to the vet this morning, so a little bit later than normal. So thanks for tuning in, and today's reflection is what is the most self-loving decision or response here? So this is a handy little question. It's not mine. I didn't create it. Teal Swan is a spiritual catalyst who has written a few books, and she talks about this in one of her books. I think her wording is different. So I've taken a little bit of poetic license on her idea and just made it work for me. So the idea being that, and she does it actually as I think her challenge is that you ask yourself this question in every single moment where there's a decision to be made, and she recommends that you do it for a full year. I haven't done that. However, it's just useful because what happens when we ask ourselves this question in every little moment of when we've got to decide something, whether it is it, do I get up now? What am I going to have to drink? How much should I drink? What needs to get done now? When we ask ourselves this question, then we're doing a real strong internal check-in, and we can start to identify when we're doing things out of obligation or because we feel that we have to or we must do particular things. And it's not making those things wrong. It's just realizing that we do a lot of things for external reasons and not for our own wants and desires and what's beneficial for us, or what's the most self-loving and beneficial thing for ourselves. Now, there's a little quote that I've been throwing around of late, and that is, every single thing that we do or even think, our thoughts, they're either detrimental or beneficial for ourselves. And there's no grey area on that. And that was a big realization for myself. I guess I've always been a bit of a believer in the grey. There's lots of grey. But sort of when you break it down into black and white, whether something is either beneficial or it's not, it's like, oh, okay. It's pretty simple all of a sudden. Now, the execution and the application and the changing of action, that's not always so simple. Okay, but it is quite simple to just ask ourselves these questions and gain additional awareness about what we're up to. So when we ask ourselves that question, what's the most self-loving decision or response here, we can start to do that internal check-in. And again, black or white, it's like, is my response, is that coming from love or is that coming from fear? So whenever I am sort of processing something and working out where my emotions or feelings are coming from, it's like, well, is this coming from love or is it coming from fear? And that can sort of start to help drive, well, what do I do then next? Because fear for me is not something that I want to prevent me from doing the thing that is best for me or best for my my growth. Okay, growth for me is my number one value. Okay, and I mention values because when we make decisions, it's actually drawing awareness to what's important to us. What are the things that we value the most? So quite often, and I'm guilty of this, I can put my hand up, guilty of this, is I can be saying one thing, but my behaviors actually can alert me to the fact that what I'm saying is in conflict to what my behavior is. Okay, so for example, I can say that health is really important to me. It's my number one value. Yeah. However, my actions and behaviors, where I'm, eating sugar frequently, okay, I know that that's not healthy. So that behavior is actually showing me, well, my value is something else. Okay, and if I dig underneath that and actually do some values analysis work, it's actually that I'm valuing comfort. Yeah, because that's what having the sugar gives me. Okay, so knowing what we value is particularly useful, and there's multiple ways of doing values elicitations. I've done numerous ones over the years, and to be honest, the most easiest and quickest one is to work out, where do I spend my time and my money? Yeah, so if you can break down where you spend the majority of your time and money, that's a big indicator as to where my values lie. Okay, so quite often when we're making decisions, we're doing it due to external influences. Okay, and when we start to ask ourselves, well, what am I valuing when I make this decision, particularly if I've identified that I'm not making the most self-loving decision or response in that moment. Okay, so I might be valuing my relationships. I might be valuing, I don't want to rock the boat by doing the thing that's most self-loving for me. Instead, I'm going to sacrifice my own need and do the thing that I think is going to be most beneficial to those that are around me at that time. Okay, and there's a whole breadth of depth to that, the whole idea of abandoning myself, abandoning my own needs and desires to appease others. There's a beautiful question that's been framed for me recently that I'm been playing with, and that is, who am I in the absence of others? So what decisions, what things would I do differently if there weren't others that I were taking into consideration their wants, needs, and desires, and the intricacies or the dynamics of our relationship? So yeah, there's some really powerful considerations in that. So yeah, play with that question. It's not a tool, again, to beat ourselves up and go, oh, well, I'm not making the most self-loving decisions, and I'm constantly self-sacrificing, and I'm constantly doing the wrong thing. Okay, what it does is it just starts to bring to our awareness where I'm letting myself go, or am I creating myself as a sacrificial lamb? And quite often, and I am very guilty of this, is I'll make decisions and play out my actions based on how I think others are going to react, without actually really checking in and seeing if that's the actual case. So I'm making up stories in my head about, well, if I choose to not go out to dinner with this group of people, they're going to think blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I've made up a story in my mind. I haven't actually even checked in to go, hey, I'm not really feeling that. Is it okay? Or how would you be if I was to just stay home tonight? Yeah. So this question is really useful for starting to bring awareness to the stories that we create. Okay, and stories that we create, and some quite often, more often than not, project onto others. As I said, I'm totally guilty of that, and it's been really nice to create awareness around that and start to rein it in. Okay. Subtle, doesn't have to be sledgehammer approach style of change, although that can work too. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, the other thing that sort of comes up around this theme that I would like to address is the concept of being selfish. So if I start to make more self-loving decisions, then there's this whole programming around, well, that's selfish. Okay. And again, that's where the checking in as well, is this coming from love or fear, is quite useful. Because if I'm doing it from the prospect of not wanting to be seen as selfish, well, then that's a fear programming going on there as well. Okay. It can be seen as selfish from people who have benefited from our inability to make self-loving decisions. And I would argue that if people genuinely love and care about us, that they'll be the true cheerleaders on the sidelines for us starting to make healthier decisions for ourselves. So yeah, what is the most self-loving decision or response here? Another frame for that, if that one doesn't sort of resonate with you, as I said, Teal Swan's got some other wording around it where I pluck that one from. But also, what would someone who loves themselves decide? Okay, so then it's a little less personal. You're separating it from yourself and go, all right, I've got a decision here to make. What would someone, not me, who really loves themselves decide in that instance? So it's just giving us that little layer of separation there. If that one's a little more comfortable, feel free to try that on. Okay, that was a deep one. There's a lot in there. Very simple and subtle, and therefore more powerful than most. Try it on. What's the next action or decision you've got to do today? What's on your plate? And just ask yourself the question. You don't then have to go and action, or you might. You might get to start reaping the benefits of making more self-loving decisions. All right, with heart and soul, that is it for today. Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying these, and I trust that those that are checking in are getting little things that they need as well. So if you're needing any extra support, if you need just even to have a conversation about that and get some more examples, just send me a message. That's what I'm here for. So yeah. All right, let you go. Have a great day.